Now, most times when you have to be using Microsoft PowerPoint, you would observe that you are usually going to be creating presentations that have a similar structure, that have similar templates. Okay, so if you're working with an organization or you're always doing maybe a pitch deck presentation or whatever presentation it would be, you will notice that there are certain presentations that you would have to repeat the exact same design over and over again. So in this case, it's very useful to understand how to create templates with Microsoft's PowerPoint. Okay, now what templates do for you is that they help you create your presentations faster. To create a template in Microsoft PowerPoint, you would need the slide master view. Okay, the slide master view is the view that has all the layouts available for creating new slides. Now, just to illustrate a bit what I'm trying to talk about, you would notice when you're trying to create a new slide. So let's say we want to create a new slide, and then on the insert ribbon, we click on the drop down beside insert a new slide. You would notice that there are various layouts here. Okay, all these thumbnails you see here are different layouts of different slides that we can create. Okay, we can create a title slide, we can create a title and content slide, we could create a section header, to content comparison, and the list goes on and on. Right now, if we click on any of these layouts, you would notice that a new slide is going to be created with that particular layout. Things to note about a layout: a layout has placeholders. Placeholders are not actually content, but they are just containers that can hold content. In this case, this particular placeholder can take in a text content, and notice that when once I start typing, the placeholder details disappears. However, if I take out content from the placeholder details like information comes back on, which means I can add any one of the available data types in this particular placeholder. So this particular placeholder can allow me to either add text, to add a table, a chart, smart graphics, images, and even videos. We also have another placeholder here that allows us to add a title text. Now notice that the text here is formatted a little differently from the text here. Now that is because the placeholder for title has been formatted to have these particular styles for the font, while the placeholder for our body text here has been formatted to have a different style. Layouts basically just save you the stress of having to repeat the same design over and over again, and it also helps you achieve a more consistent look and feel for your entire presentation. Let's see where we can define this layout and how we can change them. So we would use the slide master view. Now there are various ways to get into the slide master view, but the most common way is by simply clicking on the view ribbon and then selecting slide master from the button here. Now that is going to open this page, and just to note one thing, if you ever want to leave the slide master view and go back to editing your presentation as usual, always look out for the slide master tab, right where you have all the tabs. Look out for the slide master tab, and then at the last button on the slide master tab is usually the close master view. That is going to return you back to editing your normal templates. Okay, so let's head back into the slide master view by clicking on the view tab, and we open up the view ribbon by clicking that, and then we select the slide master button. You would notice here that there are a couple of templates that are available for each presentation by default. So we have a title template that has been already designed for this particular theme that we used. We notice that there are a bunch of other templates here, and the amazing part about editing your slide content or editing your design elements directly from the slide master view is that it would affect whatever change you make would affect all the slides that are using or relying on that particular template. So if I were to take out, so for instance, if I were to take out the white looking badge on our title style, on our title slide layout, if I were to delete this and close the master view, well, once we get to our title slide, which is demo presentation here, you would notice that the white badge is no more present, is no longer present. The slide master view provides a more consistent way of ensuring that our slide content stays as consistent as possible. For our use case right now, we are going to create our own layout for presenting data, and I don't want to use any of the templates here, so you can leave the templates, or you could actually delete them if you don't want any of the layouts there. So you will notice that all the layouts would be deleted except the ones that are currently in use on your presentation. And in this case, we have used this is the default template, the title and content layout, and we have used this layout already on our design. To create a new layout, just like how you create a new slide, you can go to your button on your slide master and click in insert layout. Now when you insert layout, you are presented with a default placeholder. So for us, we would want to use, say we want to use this as our title placeholder. Now we want to insert placeholders for images because I want this particular slide to have 2 images. So heading over to the slide master ribbon, we click on insert placeholder. Now there is a little drop down icon beside the insert placeholder button, and so we click on that, and then we have options as to what kind of placeholders we can insert on our layout. So in this case, I'm looking for a picture, so I'm just going to insert it. Now note that once I just click that, my cursor just changed to a thin plus icon, which means it's prompting me to draw out an area for that placeholder. So I'm just going to click and drag to start drawing out, and then I'll stop there. Now we have a placeholder. So note that this is a placeholder and not the actual picture that is going into your design. Okay, so this is just a placeholder that is going to be used, that is going to make it easy for you to insert a picture whenever you use this particular layout. So I'm just going to duplicate this picture by using Ctrl C and Ctrl V, or Command C and Command V if you're on a Mac system. Now I'll just click and drag this to the right, and what I have here is a layout with 2 pictures. I can decide to rename this layout by either right clicking on the layout here, the layout thumbnail here, and selecting rename, or I use the rename button here on the slide master ribbon. Now the default name is custom layout. I will change it to something more descriptive, so I could say 2 pictures and click on rename. Now let's see how we can use the layout we just created. So I'll click on close master to bring me back to my presentation mode, but that's to edit presentation mode. And then to use the new layout we just created, we can either transform an existing slide to use that layout by clicking on slide 4, and then we head over to the home ribbon and select layout button. Now once we select the layout button, you'll notice that you can switch the layout for that particular slide to any one of the available layouts, and we can see here the layout that we just created on our slide master view. 2 pictures. If we click on that, we have the placeholders we just created to add a picture. So it says here click icon to add a picture. We can just click this icon and it will prompt us to add an image to, it will prompt us to add an image to our slide. We can edit the title and then go ahead to adding the images. Now you could also use your slide master to alter the entire design of your slides. So you could head over to view, click on slide master, and then click on themes. Once you click on themes, you can then select any one of the available themes that Microsoft PowerPoint provides you by default. And notice that selecting a theme is going to, selecting a theme is going to replace or is going to download all the layouts for that particular theme, as well as retaining your own custom layouts. Okay, so this is the custom layout we just created, 2 pictures, and we can see that the theme has been applied to this particular layout. One of the most common uses of or use cases of the slide master is, we can use the slide master to add a consistent, okay, this is the element we put in initially, so I'm just going to cut this out. I'm going to use that very soon. So we could use this to put a consistent logo across the entire set of slides that we have. Okay, if you click on, now if you notice, there is a bigger thumbnail here, and then we have smaller thumbnails that look like they are indented under it. Okay, so this very first layout here affects every other layout. Okay, so if we put in a logo on this layout, so let's use this badge as a logo. I'm going to change the color of that particular shape just to make it look somewhat like a logo. So if we have something like that, and let's just give it maybe some text at the center, I will just use A. So I'm just trying to make this feel more like a logo. Okay, so I'm going to centralize this, increase the font size, then centralize the text. Okay, now if we use this as our logo, as you're scrolling down on the available layouts, you would notice that the logo is being used on every single layout. Now, the reason why you are not seeing the logo on some of these layouts is because this particular design element is blocking the logo. Okay, so you can either change the position of the logo then by heading over to master title slide and then changing the direction of the logo. Okay, so now that we have our logo there, if we head over to the slide master ribbon again and close the master, you would notice that our slides now have that particular logo, except the slides that have this particular design element, which is hiding the logo that we just included on all slides. You are at liberty to adjust most of these things to suit your specific use case. Finally, we are going to take a look at transitions and basic animation. In PowerPoint, a transition is basically an animation from one slide to the next. I have already modified our slideshow to look a little cleaner, adding two images in our image placeholder. Let's run our slideshow and see what it looks like. I can run the slideshow by clicking this button down here, or by heading over to the slideshow ribbon and clicking play from start. Running through our slideshow by pressing the right arrow key, we notice that our slides are just changing. There is no animation between our slides. Everything is just happening instantaneously. Now that might be a little boring for a couple of or some presentations, so using transitions might make that a little bit more exciting. To add a transition between two slides, you use the transition tab, which opens up the transition ribbon. Now you will notice here that there are a couple of options that you could use. I can click on any one of these transitions to apply to our current slide. Now note that when you apply a transition to a selected slide, that transition is applied or is used before that selected slide is brought into view. So if I apply a transition to our demo presentation slide, which is our title slide, when we are launching our title slide, the transition would occur. So if I select a transition like push, for instance, you see a little preview of what that transition would look like. And it is as simple as that. You have applied your transition. So let's run our slideshow again and see what that looks like when we are presenting. Okay, so you notice that the title slide was animated in using the exact transition that we specified, which was pushing. I'm going to click escape now to close that. Now, heading back to the transition ribbon, you can try out various transition types as they suit your needs. But it is usually important to note that animations not used correctly can distract your audience. It is very important to use animation as subtly as possible. You can adjust different controls on your transitions to make them or to refine them to what you want them to be. So if I select a transition like push, for instance, there is a button after our list of transitions here, which is called effect options, and not all transitions have this. But for the ones that do, if you click on the effect options, you can choose the direction, where you want your push transition to come from. So I would change mine to coming from top. And now I want my transition to be a little faster. You can set the duration of your transition. Right now it is set at what? 1 second. This duration is specified in seconds. I can reduce this by either toggling the arrow keys on this input or simply just typing a value. So if I want it to run in half a second, I would type in 0.5. You can specify a particular sound to play when your transition is being registered, but it is usually most times, in most cases, you will not need to provide a sound except you're doing a presentation for majorly kids or it could be some other custom type of presentation, but in most cases you will not be using sounds for your transitions. Now you can select that your transition should happen immediately on mouse click. That's when you click your mouse to navigate to that particular slide, or for your transition to occur after a selected number of seconds. Now note that if you select your transition to occur after a selected amount of seconds, it is going to navigate to the next slide after that amount of seconds. Okay, like after the specified seconds. So if we set this now to 1 second and then we run our slideshow, we notice that we did not stay on the title slide for long. After 1 second, it navigated to the next slide. So be careful when you're using the option, after for transitions. It is usually advisable to just run your transitions on mouse click so you are in control of how your slides are presented. But if it suits your use case, go ahead. Also, we can add transitions to multiple slides by simply highlighting the slides. So to highlight the number of slides, we hold shift and click on the slides, and you will notice this red border around the slides that you've highlighted. Once we do that, we can add any transition of our choice to those slides. So we can click this little drop down here to see more transitions, or if you're on a Windows system, the button to see more would most likely be around the right corner. So here you can see more exciting and really interesting transitions that we can put on our slides. I'm going to pick one of the exciting ones here called peel off. Now note that once a transition is added to a particular slide, there is this little motion star icon that is added just below the slide number, and that icon has now been added to the remaining 3 slides that we just selected. Now if we play or we run our presentation again, I'm going to click the slideshow button here. Now we notice that as we navigate through our slides, the transitions occur. The final thing we're going to look at is how we can animate, perform basic animations on our slides. Say, for instance, on our showcase page where we have 2 images, and we want to, during our presentation, talk about one of these images at a time. It would be very interesting to ensure that just one image shows up for the user, so you could talk to it and then the second image can show up much later. In order to do that, instead of splitting this into 2 different slides with one image on both slides, you can easily use an animation to achieve that. Let's try to achieve that particular feature. So to add animations to your slides or presentation, you click on the animations tab and then you select the element you want to animate. So in this case, we want to animate these 2 pictures. So I'm just going to select the first picture, and then just like for transitions, you have a wide range of animations that you can add to your design element. In this case, we just want to add something basic, so I'm just going to add in a fade animation. Okay, and now you see the preview of what the fade animation would be, and while you just did that, you will notice that a new sidebar has been opened, and this sidebar is usually where you can manage your animations. You can set the order of your animations, what should happen before what. Animations basically happen in specific orders. What we want to achieve is that So we want this particular one to show and this to be invisible. Right now we've added an animation to show this image when once we've entered the slide. We are going to click on the second image and add a similar animation. So I'm going to click on fade to. But this time around, notice that the second image is given a number 2, which means in the order of animations, this animation would occur before this second one. But we want to make sure that we fine-tune that and we see what the default state is. So let's run this particular slide and see what it would look like in our presentation. So click on slideshow and we'll click on play from current slide. So the slide opens up with our transition that we just finished setting in the previous part. Now notice that it loads up as blank. This is because we've already added an animation to both of the elements that are supposed to be present on this page. And if we click, the first image shows up. If we click again, the second image shows up. Once the animations for that particular slide has been completed, your next click is going to change to the next slide. Now let's see the configuration for these two animations and why it was only showing when we had to click. So if we click on this, you can see the animation here on the animations sidebar, and you can adjust the settings of each of these animations by either changing the effect options, the timing, or the triggers. Most times you will not be bothered about the effects options for an animation. The major things you'll be looking at will be the timing and the trigger. For timing, our animation is set to start on click, which means that our animation would not occur until we click the slide. Now, in some cases, you might want to make sure that your animation, like another element, animates together. So for instance, I could make sure that when I'm animating in the title, that the first image shows up together with the title. Duration tells you how fast you want your animation to occur. In this case, it's very fast. Delay helps you specify how long you want to wait in seconds before the animation happens. And you could also decide how many times you want your animations to repeat. So for this picture, I would make this animation repeat twice. And then let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to play from current slide just to preview this. And then we can see that once we click this, our image blinked twice. So it faded in twice because we set the repeat to 2. Finally, let's animate the title and see what it would look like if we want to have if we want to have two elements animate together. So I will click on our title showcase and head over to the animations ribbon, and then I will click fly in. So I want our animation to fly in. Now clicking fly in has now automatically added the flying animation to our title showcase, but note that it is now given the number 3, which means that the fade animation that we added here to our first image will run first. The fade animation that we added to our second image would run second, and then the fly in animation that we added to our title will run third. But that is not what we want to achieve. We want that our showcase, that the title animation runs first, and while the title animation is running, the first image should already be in view so that you can start talking about it to your intended audience. So to do that, to change the order of this animation, we simply use the animations sidebar here and then move this upwards by just clicking and dragging. Now notice that automatically the title animation order has been changed to what? To 1. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to click on the second animation, which is the animation of the first picture, and we want it to happen the same time that the title animation is happening. So what we are going to do is we are going to change the timing, the start timing, from on click to with previous, which means the animation of the title case is going to run at the same time that this first image is going to, fade in. Now if you notice, the animation order has changed from 1 2 3 to 1 1 2. That is because both of these animations are going to be executed at the same time. So let's preview our slide and see how that plays out for us. So if I click now, you would notice the title animates in, and at the same time our first image has also been animated. The second click then brings up the second image. So with this, if you cannot see this animation sidebar, especially if you're on a Windows system, ensure to click if you cannot see this sidebar if you're on a Windows system, ensure to select animation pane. Okay, so animation pane is what would toggle this animation sidebar on or off, whether you're on a Windows or on a Mac. So locate a button that says animation pane, and then you can toggle the animation pane on and off. Your animation pane is your most useful tool when it comes to creating engaging animations. So we've just covered the basics of, basic animations that we could create and basic transitions that we could work with. There is a lot more that can be done when it comes to transitions and animations, and combining them you could create amazing presentations. So I would leave you with this to keep practicing and see how you can combine all the basics that you've learned to building a simple, engaging presentation. Whenever you're creating presentations, try to draft out your content first. Don't focus on design. So draft out your content first. Once you're done with your content, you can have a sketch of how you intend to present the information before you start using PowerPoint. Else you would find yourself stuck spending hours, designing and redesigning your presentation, and it would, you would never come to a conclusion. So ensure that you have a clear plan of the data or the information that you're trying to present and how you intend to pass it across to your intended audience. Then you can use the tools available to you on Microsoft PowerPoint to bring out your presentation. This has been Mastering Microsoft PowerPoint and Excel course on Thummim NG. It's been nice having you on our sessions. Look forward to the great things you'll be doing with what you've learned so far. I hope you enjoyed the course. Thank you, and bye now.